All right. So in the first class, we have discussed a little bit on the definition or the meaning of agrobiodiversity or the concept of it. All right. So as of today, I'm going to let's discuss a topic related to this class. So today's topic is on I'm going to introduce you to the concept of neglected and underutilized crop. So when we talk about agrobiodiversity, there are various ways for us to categorize or to approach or to group the diversity in agriculture or the agrobiodiversity itself. And at the same time, there are several well-established concepts that's already being used throughout the world regarding that's relates to agrobiodiversity, either directly or indirectly. One of the major concepts, so I'm going to share with you and we are going to explore together some of the major concepts that related to agrobiodiversity. And one of it is on the neglected and underutilized crop. So what is underutilized crops? So underutilized crop or neglected crops species are defined as species as indigenous or ancient crop species which are still used at some level within the local, national, or even international communities, but have the potential to contribute further to the mix of food source than they currently do. So meaning that out of so many crop species available out there, and actually there are some species that has been abandoned. Simply put, what I can say is that most of the species of food or crops that we know today does not exist in the last 100 years. Actually, the development of the world, the advancements of the world in the last 100 to 200 years ago has surpassed the development of all civilization thousands of years ago. Of course, from time to time, some people will love to say that, oh, we have great civilization 1,000 years ago, we have great things, maybe 200 years ago or 2,000 years ago, the Pyramid of Giza and so on. Yes, of course, maybe in certain aspect, something that has been built in the previous civilization is hard to be replicated today. But if you look closely at the advancements of the world, all right, we are actually living in a very interesting period of time. Especially your generation, the millennial generation. Even though from time to time, people have said that, oh, millennial generation just only know the gadgets and so on. But realize it or not, this millennia that we currently undergoing is a very interesting period of time. In the history, in the last 100 or 200 years alone, we have surpassed a lot of things that have been achieved by the previous thousands of years of civilization. The proof is that, look at your food crops today. Look at the foods that we eat today. Look at all the vegetables that you know today. So let's say I send all of you back, back in time to 100 years ago. and you go to the market at that particular time, okay, you would hardly recognize vegetables that you knew today 100 years ago. Okay, let's say what? Cabbage, lettuce, or even corn. Okay, or even rice. Okay, the form, the shape, how they look, they're totally different. Okay, from 200, 100 and 200 years ago. Because all the thing that we have today is the product of the scientific research. Okay, however, okay, so those vegetables, those crops, or those plants that are being used today, being used before in agriculture, okay, they have been improved to become what we have today. However, some species in some part of the world, they still use, okay, what we call it the ancient type of crop or plants. Meaning that out of so many foods before, okay, so we have choose several of it, and then we improve on that, and that's what become widely available today. But some species, they were left, okay, they were side left over time. They were not being focused on research, or maybe they will not become popular at one time. Because of that, okay, they were what we call the abandoned and neglected. So this species, the species that is lesser known, we call it, are not really known today, okay, or maybe not really being used, okay, by the modern agriculture, but maybe they are still being used in some part of the world somewhere. Okay, and this is what we call underutilized or neglected crops. Okay, all right. So neglected or underused crop are also known as orphan. Sometimes people call it an orphan crops, meaning that they lost their relations. Okay, they lost their relative because we do not the research before do not focus on improving them, do not focus on them. So maybe some species have become extinct. All right. So maybe the remaining species of them is what we call the orphan, or some species we call abandoned species, or lost species. Some is called underutilized, or local, or minor, or traditional, alternative, niche, or underdeveloped crops. Okay, and lately, some people refer to this type of species, or okay, as forgotten, or okay, of forgotten as forgotten species. But from time to time, okay, interesting event occur in the world. Even science itself have some limitation. There will be a limit, okay, to our advancements. And when we reach a certain limits or a certain challenge, then we start to think outside of the box. We start to relook again, okay, to the past, and we try to look again outside of what is common. All right. So this is okay, what some people call the smart food and so on. All right. So this agrobiodiversity, the first topic today is that, okay, before we explore further on the diversity of food that is yet to be found, okay, the first thing that we need to explore is that we need to explore, okay, the neglected or the underutilized crop. Okay, crops or plants that before being used maybe 200 years ago or 100 years ago or maybe even 50 years ago, but now they were not popular or not in focus. Okay, meaning that they used to be in our database. We used to look at them. We used to do research on them, but now they start to be forgotten. Okay, because from time to time, sometimes, okay, it's quite irony. Okay, some people claim that, oh, I found new thing, but most of the time, what they found, okay, is actually not new. Something that had been used before, been very popular before. They just rediscover it because it's been forgotten for a while. Okay, so all of you, I expect all of you to explore, okay, that what, okay, all those things that used to be, okay, in focus before, because they are still in our database. Meaning database here is that if you research on them, you might find them. Okay, only when you already do your literature search or you read through the pages of history in our database, you exhaust all our resources. And after that, if you found new thing, then it's a really new thing. Okay, not something that actually been known before. It's just that you found it. Okay, so that when people talk about UPM Studio, when people are, if there's something new, it is truly new, not something that is actually new to us, not to the world actually. Okay, so when we want to explore this, these are, okay, in this slide listed some of the terminologies that you want to look upon. Okay, so when you want to look, okay, on the forgotten or underutilized crop, you can also search under the keyword of orphan species or orphan crop, abandoned species, lost species, underutilized, local, minor, traditional, and so on, as listed here. Okay, do not restrict it, okay, your research to just one keyword or to one terminologies. All right, so you need to expand your terminology. So that is what this slide is all about. So these crop species, or the so-called forgotten crops or underutilized crop, okay, this crop actually domesticated plant species. They have been used for centuries or even millennia for their food. Okay, maybe they used to be used, okay, for hundreds of years or thousands of years, but suddenly when new crops coming up, okay, they were forgotten. Okay, so some of these crops actually they have been used for centuries or even millennia, either as food or as the source of fiber or as fodder or as oil or for medicinal properties. But they have been reduced in importance over time, okay, because, okay, to several reasons, such as maybe, okay, one of the major reasons why some species were forgotten or left behind from, okay, into the page of history, the first reason might be the poor shelf life, meaning that we cannot keep them for long. Because of that, okay, they attract less interest, okay, to be used by some people, or to be researched upon. And secondly, because of unrecognizable nutritional values. Okay, maybe in the previous 100 years, we don't really know the use of that particular plant. We don't know what value did they actually have. Because of that, and then we found something very useful, so we focused on that. However, with the current technology, okay, we're able to evaluate the nutritional values of foods better. So now we need to start reevaluate all the foods before that we left behind, foods that we think they're unimportant before. With the new technology, we might surprise ourselves again and again. Okay? And thirdly, poor consumer awareness and reputational problems. Okay? Some species actually, they were good, but because they have bad reputations. Okay, for example, some crop species, okay, they become less attractive for commercial producer because they were considered as famine food or poor people's food. Okay, sometimes due to the modernization of agricultural practices. Example, you look at Malaysia. Okay, you look at cassava. Okay, look at cassava. Okay, everyone know cassava? Our friend from China?
I don't know.
You don't know cassava?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ah, okay. Cassava is also known as, okay, I'm sure you know, you've seen this before, okay? Let me try to search for you. This I'm sure all of you know this, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is cassava, or the Malay call it ubi kayu, manihot esculenta. You know, this food is actually used to be one of our major source of carbohydrate. All right, all over the world, people can eat this. But look at today. If you look at the staple food of today, okay, look at the staple food of today. Okay, Malaysia will go for rice. China will go for rice. Japanese, Asian will go for rice as the main source of carbohydrate. Okay, and you look at the Western countries, they go for wheat. Right? They produce flour. Okay, but you look at African nation, some countries, African nation, they still use cassava as their main source of carbohydrate. Okay, in Malaysia before, okay, whenever you mention cassava, nowadays, okay, cassava is no longer the main or staple food or the main source of carbs for Malaysian. Okay, Malaysia still eat cassava. You still can find it, but in very, okay, not in a commercial scale. Some people they use it as a comfort food or food that remind them of their history. Okay, they will use sometimes they use it as yes, maybe say as tapai. Okay, or maybe some people use as they boil it and eat with coconut. Okay, but it's not a major food. Some people sometimes love it. Yes, we love it, but it's not a major source. Why? Okay, because we associate that cassava. Okay, if you listen to the grandparent of Malaysian, okay, they will say that there was an invasion time, there's a war time. During the war time, there's no rice. We eat cassava. So this cassava symbolize hard time or poor people food. Okay, at that time we cannot afford that, so we just eat cassava. Whenever the old people they mention cassava, they remind them of the old time, of the poor time. Okay, and in fact nowadays cassava is okay. If you look at the countries that use cassava mainly as the food, is the poor countries. We are not judging. Okay, we are not discriminating. But if you look at African nation where they cannot produce enough flour or wheat or rice, they will use cassava. Okay, so even at the international people nowadays at the international level, cassava has this labeled as the poor country's food. However, okay, if you look closely at the nutritive values or the contents of the carbohydrate and everything, they actually have a good values. Okay, even in China, for example, you know cassava, you can eat it, but it did not become main dish. Main dish meaning that not a staple. You eat cassava morning, for lunch, for dinner, okay, for everything you did. Okay, so some species. Okay, yes, in China you got desserts, but that's it. Okay, you use it for dessert or you use it sometime only for celebrations. Okay. In Malaysia, maybe some people they use it as their traditional liquor, or they produce or I call it fermented food as tapai. Okay, normally during Hari Raya, okay, during Malaysia Hari Raya for the so, but they are not becoming the major food anymore. Okay, so this might be the reason why some species were forgotten because they have some negative uh, negative labels or reputation to it. Okay, all right, and then okay, and some crop also being neglected. Okay, most of the crop that have been neglected, sometimes they have been neglected. Okay, in a serious way, that even the genetic pools have been eroded. We call it. Okay, eroded meaning that some crop species have been forgotten, have been abandoned. No one want to plant them anymore. We can hardly find them, up to the point that they become lost crops. Lost crop mean that we can only recall them from our memory and history, but it's hard to find that species anymore. Okay, look at Malaysia. Malaysia before we have the okay, dry rice, okay, or we call it okay aerobic rice, okay, padi huma. Okay, maybe in some China also there's still people who plant rice or the highland rice we call it. rice that is not being planted, okay, with the conventional way. But in Malaysia, highland rice is hard to be found. Only you can find it maybe in Bario, in Sarawak, become a very exotic type of rice or exotic type of paddy. Okay, but even that, when we want to commercialize it again, it's becoming very hard because the genetic pool has been eroded. Okay, so some species, even at the world level, okay, we can find information about this, some certain type of species of, okay, certain type of vegetables, certain type of fruits, but okay, it's hard to find the live trees or the live species, and then they are known as the lost crops. Okay, especially when you involve in excavation, archaeological excavation, maybe in the pyramid. Okay, when you look, you know, botany. Okay, sometimes involved in excavation or archaeology. That's why we have what we call a paleobotany. Okay, there's a field in botany called paleobotany. Okay, normally when you talk about paleo, you talk about dinosaurs. Okay, so those who go and investigate dinosaurs normally known as paleologists. Okay, but actually in the team of paleologists, normally in the team that do archaeological work, normally there would be a botanist. Okay, we call them paleobotanists. And if you look, okay, at the archaeological activities, you found evidence of some species of crops that being used in the ancient time, like by the Pharaoh of Egypt. Okay, or look at the story of the Mayan people. Okay, their civilization have gone, okay, for several millennia. So from the mural, from the old painting, okay, not only crops, you can see that some animals in the cave painting, okay, some animals that be hunted in the cave, people say that is a myth, but maybe they actually existed before. Okay, but they no longer existed today. It become lost crops or lost food or lost species. Okay. So what about Malaysia? And what about China? What about our country itself? Okay, since the class is composed of so many people, okay, from several countries, all right. So this topic today is about neglected crops or forgotten crops. Okay. Any question regarding this before we proceed? Any question about the topic of, okay, underutilized crops?
So far, no, Doctor.
Okay, all right. So today's topic is actually about exploring, okay, the concept of underutilized crops. Okay, underutilized is the most common term being used today. But at the same time, there are other terms, as I mentioned before, we call it forgotten crop, abandoned crops, and so on. All right. So the first task, okay, of today, all right. So you need to explore, okay, about the concept of underutilized crop or forgotten crop. Okay, try to read and try to find as much information about it as possible. Okay, so I will leave you with a task today. All right. So the first, not assignment, a task. Okay, it's a task-based work. So all of you, okay, please go and explore. Okay, you got 1 hour left. Okay, for our more than 1 hour left. Okay, explore and write. Okay, a short summary. Okay, about underutilized crop. Okay, whatever you can find in the internet. Okay, and then you submit it to the Google Drive. Okay, just write a short articles about it, about underutilized crop. Okay, go and explore it and write it. Okay, and you submit it to our Google Drive. Class rep, who is responsible for this? Okay, create a Google Drive and everyone must submit it. Okay, you must submit it before our class next week, before Monday. Okay, and then I will pick, okay, maybe some of us, okay, of you to share about it. So for our friend in China, you can write, okay, about this concept in China, not in Chinese, meaning that about the forgotten crop of China. Okay, if you have international students from other countries also, okay, you can please explore also about your countries. And even Malaysian student, okay, you can explore the lost species, not only about Malaysia, but maybe at the world level or about other countries. Okay, so the task today is that, okay, go and explore the concept of underutilized, try to find as many examples as possible, okay, and try to discuss it. Please explore by yourself and make sure you understand and go as wide as possible and as deep as possible. Okay, remember this is 4,000 class. So next week, okay, we start discussing on it, and from there, okay, we will do some sharing. Is that clear, guys?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, good. So that's for today. Go and explore either through the internet or use your textbook, or if you know anyone, maybe you have a long-lived great-grandparent, give them a call after this. Okay, ask them, is there any food that you eat when you were small, maybe 90 years ago, maybe your grandma is 90 years old, that is we didn't eat yet today anymore. Okay, or go to the textbook, explore as much as possible. All right, and write it in short summary. It can be short or long, doesn't matter. Okay, but put in mind that put as much information as possible for you to share. All right. Okay, so there's some keywords before. Okay, so go and explore. That's all for today. Any question before we adjourn our class?
No, Doctor.
Who's that? Who?
Me. If the lost species is just one variety of,
Yes,
is it okay?
it could be wild variety, but it could be something that used to be, we used them before, but no longer. It could be wild varieties, but wild varieties could be lost species or could be new species. All right. Wild varieties could be both. Okay, so when you are researching on wild varieties, try to find information either they used to be popular before, okay, or it is a newly evolved varieties. Okay, for example, yes, for example, cocoa. Okay, look at our cocoa nowadays that you have, and if you compare the wild varieties of cocoa, yes, some is considered actually abundant breed of cocoa. All right, but some actually newly evolved species that we never touched before. So what we focus today is that the lost one, maybe used to be claimed as the top. Okay, for example, in Malaysia, okay, we have some, for example, cassava again in Malaysia. You know, in the 80s in Malaysia, we have a great research on cassava. We Malaysian, in fact, have several varieties. Okay, Malaysian produce our own varieties of cassava, great varieties. But then, due to popularity issues, nobody planted it. Okay, nobody focused on it. And nowadays, if you ask me, where can I find these varieties that have been produced in Malaysia before? No, we cannot find it anymore. It lost. We can only found it in journal paper, in textbook. But if you want to see the species that have been researched before, you can find the plants anymore. Okay, and that is some example of loss. Something that's been researched or been used before, but no longer being used. It could be wild. It could be becoming wild again. Okay, or maybe it's there, but not much. Maybe just fine becoming an ornamental plants nowadays, something like that. Or some medicines. Okay, mostly herbs if you realize. Okay, before we use a lot of herbs, right? Before we have modern medicine. Okay, like China, I think you still have Sinsei, right? You still buy a lot of traditional root as well. Maybe along the way, I think in the before we have modern medicines, okay, we rely on natural remedies, but maybe no longer today. Maybe the plants still around us, but become maybe an ornamental plant or become weeds, okay, because we no longer use them, so they become what we call the lost or abundant species. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Can you write your name in English? What should I call you? I can't really read Chinese character. Okay, Xing Qing. Oh, all right. Do put your English name also. Okay, Cheng Xing Qing. All right. Any more question, guys?
submit for next class kan? Before next class.
Yes, before next class.
Alright,
Okay.
thank you.
But do use today's time. Okay, so you still got some time. But of course, I don't know what you want to go. Maybe you want to go for a date right away. It's up to you. But okay, basically, there's no reason for you not to be able to do something about it lah. Okay, because I already give the time during the class time. Okay, aside from additional time that you need to use lah to complete the task. Okay. Sofita.
Okay, doktor. Takut tak sempat.
Okay. So Sofita, from which part of Tumpat are you?
Kampung Terbak. Siamese Kampung.
Siamese Kampung, Kampung Terbak, Tumpat.
Uh,
Because I went to Tumpat quite a lot also. I love looking at the places with the mangroves there. Okay.
mhm.
Alright.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing more,
Yes, excuse me, Doctor.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where can I download the slide, the PowerPoint?
Okay, the PowerPoint I will put it in the Putra Plus, but maybe later, not soon after this, because the line is a bit problem here. Okay.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Can you all open your camera for a while so that who's in charge of recording our session? Last time we appointed someone already, right?
Nak turun dah ke?
For attendance, Doctor. Ami. I
Ami.
put the attendance link in the chat box.
Okay. So make sure you record this session, okay? And then maybe some screenshot of our class lah. Sarvesh, your friend's not wearing anything behind the screen.
Doctor, he's working out.
Working out lah. Ayo.
He's your ex-student, Doctor Harish Kumar.
It's Harish Kumar.
Yeah.
Why he didn't take the class?
What is that, Doctor?
Why he didn't take the class?
No, he is BSPP, Doctor.
Oh, BSPP. Okay. So any question anymore, Fraser?
I'm sorry, Doctor.
No problem. Okay. So your friend just belanja all the others in the groups lah. Okay. All right. All right, guys. Have you screenshot? Ame? Where's Ame? Okay. So if there's no more questions, I think that's all for today. I wish you a good day. Okay. Stay safe. And then get ready. Okay. We are just get the ball rolling. There will be several assignments. Okay. Later on. And there will be, I think, we're going to have a big event lah, so get ready. Okay. Who's our class rep again here? Last time we appoint?
Me, Doctor.
Yes, Mio, right. Okay, Mio is a class rep. Okay. All right. So, all right, everyone, if there's nothing more, okay, please do your exploration on the concept of underutilized crops. Okay. Because this is actually a very big issue. Okay. All right. Because for our classes, why this class is actually I created this class. Okay, why? Okay, because in every countries, because once you graduated from UPM, there will be one big question that will always be asked for you. All right. For Malaysia, what is our number one crop?
Oil palm.
Yes. Oil palm is Malaysian golden crops. So, as graduate of UPM in agriculture, whenever you want to go for promotion, people will ask you, if oil crop fail one day, what is the next crop? What can replace oil palm? What are the proteges? What are the candidates? The same goes with other countries. Every country, they have their own commodity. We call it commodity or major crops. The main crop that support the economy. But there always risk. Maybe one day the major crop, will be gone due to disease, due to anything else, or productivity, or there's so many reasons. But if our major crop's gone, then we need to be ready with candidates, right? The new crops to come. Because if we are not ready, we might affect our food security and the economy and the people or the country itself. So this course actually, for 14 weeks throughout this semester, this subject is just to help you answer that question. Maybe we won't find the answers, but at least we know the possibilities or where to look for answers. Okay, let's say one day something happened to rice. There is a major outbreak. Okay, COVID can affect human. Maybe one day there's a disease that could affect all. You look at cow or beef industry. Okay, now they got HMD, okay, mouth disease. It can affect several countries. And then what happened for our protein source? Okay, look at pork before. We got JE, Japanese encephalitis. They go across the world. It affect the pork production. So some countries that depend on pork for their proteins, they were badly affected. So we need to be ready. Look at our food also. Either they are industrial crops, okay, or they are food crops. Okay, we need to always be ready. All right, so this subject, 14 weeks, we are just exploring, trying to answer this one question. Okay, for Malaysian, if oil palm fail, what's the next crop? Okay, maybe international level, if rice fail one day. All right, so what are we going to eat? All right, so basically the theme of this concept is very simple, but okay, you need to work hard because answering the simplest of question is the hardest. All right, for example, you and your boyfriend, it's a question of you want me or not, but then you will undergo so many drama. All right, Sarvesh, you got someone that you love, it's very simple actually, you want me or not, right? But before you reach the conclusion, there's drama for you. Okay, so bear in mind, that is the aim for this class, very simple. Okay, hopefully after 14 weeks, when I ask each of you, you can give me an answer with data, with reason why that is the best choice of possibilities. Okay, that's all for today. Okay, bear that in mind and stay safe and stay happy. All right, see you around, guys. Okay, and do you know that our class has been changed? Look at your ESMP. Our face-to-face class has been changed to lecture hall, not lecture room anymore. Okay, so that we can have more spaces. Okay, check your ESMP. So maybe when the times come for our face-to-face class, it's going to be in the lecture hall, not lecture room. All right, I think that's all for today. Okay, don't forget your meals. Okay, Assalamualaikum and good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
Thank you, Doctor.